Hello and welcome back to the show, Karen. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be back again.
Yes, I can't wait to dive in. So let's do it. Tell us a current show you're watching. Is there a current show you're watching that you like that maybe we can watch too?
Well, it's a I don't know if I can say that I really like it, but I mean it's one that we're watching. We've started watching the OJ Made in America.
Okay,
If you're familiar or if you've
I
seen
am. I
uh,
am.
and it's very interesting. I didn't realize so much of a lot of what was going on with all of that, but I remember the whole scene of the white Bronco and the chase. And Rick and
Mhm.
I were so sick, and we were just like dead on the couch watching it. And I was almost 9 months pregnant with Avery. I mean, ready to deliver any moment. And yeah, we just watched that whole scene, and yeah, it was just such an odd, the whole thing was just odd, but it's been an interesting show.
And I would have to say, and that's an older show, as I recall. I feel like I watched it more than several years ago, right? I mean, isn't it?
Probably, yeah, we just
Okay.
stumbled upon it. We were
Okay.
looking for, we had finished, one of our other kind of bingey watch shows and just stumbled upon it. So, well, let's watch that. So,
And it is interesting, as I recall, it was very well done, extremely well done. The acting, Sterling K. Brown, that was before we even knew who he was. Before he was in This Is Us, that show that sort of catapulted him to the next level. He was just incredible. He really was playing oh gosh, I can't remember the assistant prosecutor. And that might not even be the official title, but he was I want to say Christopher Darden, but I might just be totally making that up.
well, no, this was all real
No,
footage.
I know, but I'm
Oh,
saying I don't
oh,
remember his characters. I mean,
oh,
he played a real person. I just don't remember the real person's name.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, very well done. And yeah, not and of course we know he just recently died, and so there's reactions about that. But how interesting that you're watching that. And see, that's why I like this question, because it might be an older show, it might be something that's kind of under the radar that we don't know about. So that's I appreciate hearing that. Okay, tell me your biggest crush growing up.
A real life crush
It
or like
doesn't matter.
Hollywood
No wrong
crush?
answers. No wrong answers here.
All right. Well, real life crush, my first crush was on a boy in first grade. His name was John Albiani. And I got in trouble for chasing him and for putting together little love notes. And I got sent to the principal. So,
Oh my gosh, that's the crush
yeah,
that you had was so bad that you were willing to send him notes and get sent
yeah,
to the principal's office.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But Hollywood crush, it would be Robert Redford in The Way We Were. I mean, that was
Well,
my
but
first love.
growing up, I mean, okay, I was expecting like David Cassidy, one of those. Robert Redford, that's a very sophisticated crush.
Yeah, well, that was, let me see, that was probably, when did The Way We Were come out? That was probably, I was maybe 12, 11 or 12.
Okay, all
So that was
right.
the first real
Like,
heartfelt.
ooh, yeah, one of those.
Yeah,
Okay.
Bob, Robert.
There you go, Bob. I guess he's known by Bob. All right, tell me the thing that you're most afraid of. And this is kind of more on the irrational fear side, more we can go deep and dark if you want, but I'm thinking more, like that sort of thing.
It's public speaking. I mean, I have a problem. I mean, it's a major problem that I have where it just rattles me. So I'm fine in small groups, and we've been leading, small groups forever. But anything over, say, 10 people, I just get rattled.
Okay, and that is so interesting because I would not really know that about you. And listener, by the way, we do know each other in real life quite well. I would not have guessed that. I mean, you present as very friendly and warm, and I won't say shy, but it's not like you're trying to get the spotlight whenever there's a group. I would not have taken that all the way to, I would really rather not talk in front of more than 10 people at a time. And yet, this is what you're saying.
Uh,
Yes. Okay. Public speaking. I have my own theory about that. And I feel like typically something happened in our earlier childhood, probably at school, maybe at home, but I'm going to say school, where somebody like a teacher didn't say quite the right thing, or a kid, when it was your turn to go up and do the math problem on the board, like somebody said something and it changed everything in terms of that confidence level to be wrong. And I think it's kind of a fear of being wrong, don't you?
yep, yep, and I know exactly where it stems from.
Oh, it does.
And,
You know, tell me.
this is my my reasoning, my thought, because I really hate being the center of attention or being on stage
Ah,
or any of that.
okay.
And so when I was when I was must have been 5 or 6 years old, my grandfather, he was a pastor of a church in Turlock in the Central Valley, and so whenever we would go for the holidays, my parents would, suggest, "Well, why don't you have the kids sing a song or something?" So I had to sing "Away in a Manger" all by myself
Oh,
in front of this church,
oh,
and and after I finished singing, I sang it fine, I guess. I walked down the stairs and down the hallway or down the aisle to my parents' pew. I tripped and fell.
oh
I was
no.
just mortified, and so I think that's my problem. I
Oh,
I feel like I'm gonna trip and fall anytime I'm on stage.
oh, okay. Oh, let's sit here just for a quick second. So it wasn't singing the song. I
No,
mean, you
although
weren't you weren't didn't want, necessarily want to do it, but you did it,
but
right?
I've never sung again.
Okay.
I lip
All
sync in
right.
church. I No one has ever heard me sing again. I know there's a lot. I mean, I should talk to my therapist about
Do you think it was the tripping and falling on top of the singing? Do you think it was like a twofer, like a
I
two in
think
one kind of prospect?
I think so.
Okay.
So,
All right. All
okay.
right.
Yeah, I've got some issues.
No, gosh, don't we all? Don't we all? But of course, that worst case scenario, okay, you fall, you get up. I mean, we can say that now, but to a 5 or 6 year old, everything just feels so magnified when you're that age. Like everyone is watching.
Yes, and I was the littlest. I mean, my older brother and sister, they were 5 and 7 years older, so I was always little
Uh,
Karen, and so everything was, they're like, "Oh, no, don't talk about it because it's over Karen's head," or, I never felt like I had anything of importance to say because I was just little Karen.
oh my gosh. Okay. I
Okay.
get it. I get it. And they were trying to protect you in their way, but it ended up being such an ongoing theme that it kind of like cemented in some thoughts in
Yeah,
you
yeah,
and
and
feelings.
yep, and I was always just a very shy person that I would rarely speak up, so
Right. Well, we're going to change all that. What's a random fact most people would not know about you, Karen?
Well, probably all of that that I just shared,
Yeah, all of that.
and, that I'm extremely flexible and bendable.
Oh, flexible and bendable.
So
That is something I really am admiring of for those of us that were born with locked hips or whatever, that whole, Sean and I joke, we're not a flexible people, not in our lives, but like
right,
physically, like the people who can kick away high and just do the splits and all that. Just, yeah, that's really something. Okay. You're flexible and bendable. That's a good one. I did not know that about you. Okay, now we all know flexible and bendable. Okay, and what about the advice you would give your 10-year-old self?
oh, probably to trust in myself, to not, just to know that I am worthy and that I
Mm.
can do all things
Mhm.
with God, that will
Mhm.
help me through all of it.
Right.
So, and looking back at this, my my issues with singing and falling, it's like, get over it. So
And I think too, looking back, to reassure that little 5 year, 6 year old or the 10-year-old that, yeah, it's okay. And I feel like even if one doesn't sing well, if you find joy in singing, then sing. I just don't think the end product is nearly as important as the doing of it if it brings you joy. I think that that's just so essential to like who we are and who we want to be and the joy of experiencing this life. So I appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable and to share some of those hard things. Well, it's summer, not officially, but almost officially. We're recording this before the first day of summer, and summer's coming, which means lots of superhero movies, whether you go see them or not, they're there anyway. I hear what Wolverine and the other guy are joining forces or something. What's this? I don't even know. Deadpool. There you go. That's about as much as I know. That's as much as I know right there. All right. So your favorite superhero and why? Because, why not?
well, I have to say I have not been one that follows superheroes. I
I
mean,
know.
when I think of superheroes, I go way back and think of Batman and Robin and Catwoman
Sure.
and Wonder Woman.
Sure.
But current day, and I admit that I really haven't watched any of these until this morning.
Oh, oh,
Because my son Ryan,
right.
is he and his wife are very much into all of the superheroes and all that stuff. So I asked him because I think I would my superpower that I would like because you kind of thrown that out there what a superpower might be. I would want to be invisible. So
Okay, your hero superpower, because that's going to be different than your other superpower,
right,
which we'll talk about in a minute. Your hero superpower is invisibility. Ooh, that would be a good one.
right.
That
And
would be a
so
good one.
I asked Ryan, I'm like, okay, is there a superhero that is invisible, that has an invisible power? So he said Susan Storms from
Okay.
Fantastic Four. And so I said,
Okay.
okay, I know nothing about her.
Yes. Okay. Well, she has the superpower you would have if you could have a superpower.
Yeah,
Okay. So Fantastic Four, Susan Storm. Okay. Yeah, okay. Right. Those all ring a bell. But again, like you, I don't know. I don't know. I
yeah.
think Storm was played by Holly Berry, but I don't even know that for sure. I'm just
Well,
guessing.
I think there's been a few
Okay. There you
versions,
go.
maybe. Maybe that
There
was
you
the
go.
first
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
I just saw
Reboot, right?
yes. So this was the one I saw was 2015. And literally I watched it this morning because I'm like, if I'm talking about an invisible superhero, I gotta, you know,
So
know.
you watched the Fantastic Four. You watched
I
it.
watched it this morning. It was really good. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
think I might turn into a fan of watching superhero movies now.
Okay, so who did play Storm in that version?
Oh,
It wasn't Halle Berry, somebody
no,
else?
it was not Halle Berry. And,
Like a Scarlett Johansson. I know she played a superhero of some kind somewhere along the way. I
I'm
don't know.
I'm
We don't
terrible
know.
with it.
No,
I'm
we don't
terrible
know.
with I'll have to look it up for you.
No, it's all good. It's all
But
good.
she was darling. She was
Okay.
super,
Yeah.
super cute. And I'm
Okay.
just bad with actors' names.
Yeah, that's okay. It's kind of fun that we don't totally know because we're not trying to present as 60 something, experts on all things superheroes for sure.
Thank you
Oh,
for giving me that.
oh yes, thank you. Yes, exactly. You're quite welcome. Okay, so let's go to your superpower. So now we've set aside the hero business. Now we're into the human side of things, not hero, but human. What is your superpower?
I think kind of two. One, I have to say it's my faith, because I
Okay.
could not get through any of the stuff I've been through without that, which is basically, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Mm-hmm.
So that, but then I also feel like I'm a very good listener.
Oh, okay.
I think that people tend to confide and share because I listen well. So I guess
Mm.
that's a gift or a superpower, whatever, however you want to.
No, yeah, no, well, we're having fun with this. We're having fun with this. So yes, why couldn't that be a superpower for sure? People tend to confide and share in you. And isn't that interesting? And I'm going to say a little bit because of that little bit of shyness that you present now that people like come into that, lean into that, like, oh, this is a safe person. I can tell her. And isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So your faith, because you know you can do all things, and a good listener, confide and share. How do you know these are your superpowers?
Well, with my faith, I know that I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't have gone through all the things that I've been through without that knowledge and that foundation of knowing that God is right there with me through it all.
Hmm.
So he's my superpower. He's my protector, my everything. But um and I think because people have told me that I'm a good listener.
Okay, right. Okay, when I started this, I thought it would be really fun, particularly with the people I know. And if I don't know somebody, how can I sort of guess what their superpower might be? But I want to tell you what I think your superpower is. And it's interesting because it kind of really it's very much the first one you asked. But see, now I would have said obedience. I
Ah,
would say that your superpower is your obedience because you say yes and that's kind of they say in like improv circles that that's like one of the very first rules like if you're improving with somebody in a scene, you don't like go against what they're saying. It's like, oh, okay, yes, oh, we're there, oh, and I'm going to add to it. I mean, I have known you for a lot of years and I see how obedient you are, and I'm saying this in the most honoring way possible, that word obedience. I mean, you live that. I mean, all these things. And listener, Karen lost, was it 6 family members in 7 years?
mhm.
6 close family members. We're talking siblings, parents, in-law, sibling, parents. I mean, just like lots and lots of people. And you know, each time you obviously felt a tremendous amount of grief that can't be escaped. However, you turned it into good, and that leads us right into one of your passion projects, I'm going to say. And that's the book that you wrote because of the grief you have experienced. So tell us about that. First of all, what's the name of the book?
It's called 828, Hope in the Darkness, a pathway from heartbreak to healing and hope. So
Hope,
really,
okay, 828,
828,
Hope in the Darkness is
right.
the
The
first
main,
part. Got it.
yeah, the tagline is the other. But um and and it wasn't anything I had ever planned to do. I never really considered myself much of a writer, but after all of these losses and kind of going back to the beginning of the story, which you also know that we have commonalities in, is that we lost our our first son Matthew, and then
Mhm.
later had a miscarriage. And so through that, my husband and I started leading grief support groups called Empty Arms, and had been leading, now it's been almost 30 years that we've been leading that ministry
Wow.
through the church. And but shortly after we had lost, all these other family members in such a short time, I just remember praying to God. It's like, okay, I understand grief. We teach grief basically. And what am I supposed to do with all these additional losses? And it was made very clear to me by a vision, which I think is very weird for people. I mean, I'm not,
No,
you know,
yeah.
it's like, oh no, she's one of those wackies that's,
Well, no, God works in all kinds of ways, and we can't begin to know or understand all the ways. But anyway, so tell us, you got had a vision.
so he basically gave me this picture of a book, which is the cover of my book. And I kind of started laughing. I'm like, God, really? You want me to write a book? I don't know anything about writing a book. And so, kind of kicking and screaming, I was obedient and
Oh,
finished this book. It took a little while. And thank you, Rechelle, for helping me along the way
of
because you
course.
read some of the very, very initial versions of it and have some of your story in it as well, which, it includes stories and tools, and it's a culmination of, 30 years of helping people through grief and loss. And
Right. 30 years of experience because you've been boots on the ground living this some years ago with Matthew and the
mhm,
miscarriage, and then sort of fast forward to all these losses in that really short period of time. And yes, we do have that in common. In fact, so much in common, both boys, both babies, and dying from the very same uh,
yes.
heart defect. It's just like, whoa, just so crazy. This is part of why I say that you're obedient. And I want to tell you, listener, that I just finished the book 2 nights ago, and it is everything you said, Karen, and more. It is so full of hope, and it really normalizes grief, and it helps the grieving person understand all the different things they're feeling, both right away and as time goes on, and how it comes back and forth, but it's never quite the same. It kind of meanders around, and like when you start laughing, is it okay if I laugh now? I mean, you just all these things that you feel like, is that okay? You cover all of that in very practical ways. And also you give all these exercises, all these writing prompts or ways to think, charts, graphs, little inventories. I mean, it's such a practical hands-on guide to help a person through their grief. And I think it's also for everyone in that even if maybe you yourself haven't experienced grief yet, you know someone who has,
Yeah.
who might need this book, or for you to read it and understand what other people go through, how sometimes they don't want to talk, or sometimes they want to talk and they don't want you to forget their loved one. They want you to mention them. Just because they're not here doesn't mean that they've been forgotten. So it's tricky too, because some people like want to hear about their loved one and other times they might not. So there are all these, I don't want to say landmines, but it's like an obstacle course. You really have to kind of navigate it. And you make so many great points about some really good things to say, and then some things maybe not to say. And I think also asking permission of the other person, like, do you want to fill in the blank? Can I fill in the blank? I mean, I just think it's such an important book. And the fact that you ended it with, I want to say there are 12 stories, but I could be making that. I didn't count them, but there are this wonderful handful of stories of people who have been into grief and how God has brought them through that. And maybe they didn't even believe in God in the first place, but just there's so much hope in it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of that. And that's my hope and prayer is that, it will provide some hope and healing to people that are going through it. And, like you said, if if they're not in it now, they will be at some point. And
Yes.
it's not for just loss of life. It's loss of really anything because when you
Mhm.
lose something that you love, you will grieve.
Right,
Whether
right,
it's, loss of a home, loss of a relationship, loss of a job, loss of a dream,
right,
you're going to grieve. And that grief, it's never going to fully go away
right,
because, our love never goes away. So
right.
as long as we're alive, there will be triggers for that loss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, time does help, and I don't like that, time heals. But time does give a perspective, and it doesn't feel like you're being hit over the head with a 2x4, every moment of every day.
Right, right.
Like it felt like in the beginning. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And time does heal, but I will say it leaves a scar. How
Mhm.
could it not? Because of what you've been through, because it doesn't negate the experience when the person is no longer physically here on earth or whatever the loss might be.
Right.
It was still real.
Hmm.
I remember this a line from a book, she had been more than her death. I just thought, oh, that is, it's from the book Wally Lamb, and I can't remember I can't remember right now the name of the book. I can see the cover, but I just, for some reason, that just really stuck with me.
Oh,
She had been more than her death. And so I feel that about Matthew. I feel that about our Christian.
then yes.
It's more than that. It's
Right.
more than that. So is there anything else you want to tell us before we wrap up our time here?
Yeah. You mean our time is already ending?
Yes.
It went so fast.
Yeah.
Um, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you will put the information about the book in
Yes.
your links or what have you, but
Yes.
I think I feel good about it, and I think that it will be helpful for anyone that reads it. I truly believe in and hope that.
I
Um,
believe that too. And let me just add that this is not the kind of book you have to sit down and read cover to cover. I mean, it's you can set it down for a while, pick it back up, highlight, mark it, go back. I mean, I think it's a great resource. So it's not like, a lot of times people are overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, no, just
right.
sit down, read a couple pages, set it aside. Don't you agree?
Yep, yep, because there are stories all mixed in through it, so it's not like you're just reading this, heavy. I mean, it would be hard to read just a full heavy book on grief.
Right.
It is,
Yeah, right, right.
but I think that there are spaces in it that give you some breathing room, and there's some. I mean, there's some stories in there that there are some kind of humorous things about what people say and some
Yes.
stupid things that people say. They don't mean to be, hurtful, but oftentimes they are.
Right.
So
Yes, and it is, even though the topic itself is hard and sad, it is very hopeful and very inspirational. So in that way, it's also extremely positive.
right, right.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen. What a pleasure, what an honor, not only to have you back on the show, but to be able to talk about this really hard, important thing you did that can really it can bring a lot of comfort. And I think that, gosh, there are just times when we all need that kind of comfort and so this would be a great resource for anybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having me on again. It's always great to see you.
You too.